The Electoral Commission for Sierra Leone CSL on Sunday declared today 23rd May to the 22nd June 2023 as campaign period for the country's general elections. This declaration was announced during an engagement with political parties on election campaign calendar for presidential, parliamentary and local council election at the Political Parties Regulation Commission Conference Hall, Lamina Sankot Street in Freetown. So this morning, to discuss the issues, security matters and the rules, what should be done and not should be done, we have with us in the studios, Abdul Karim Will is Director of Communications, Office of National Security. We also have Saliu Kamara, Public Relations Officer, National Elections Watch, new, and will be joining on our Zoom call the Chairman of the Political Parties Regulation Commission, PPRC, Lawyer Abdullahi Masiambi Bangura. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, and thank you for having us.
Good morning.
I'll start with you, Will. The day starts today. What's the security situation as we get into campaign period?
Thank you very much. By security information and intelligence estimates, the general security situation in the country is relatively peaceful, and it is expected that this is going to be the case for the foreseeable future. On our part as a sector, we've done everything that we think that we should reasonably do in preparation for the elections. If I should quote the National Security Coordinator in an engagement he had with the EU, he stated that the security sector is fully and adequately prepared to provide the enabling environment for the conduct of the multi-tier elections come June 2023. That is on the basis of the fact that as a sector, we had over the period made conscious efforts to prepare adequately for providing the enabling environment where everybody that has a role to play in the election is able to carry out his functions without let or hindrance. Under the auspices of the Integrated Election Security Planning Committee, the IESPC, which is the subcommittee of the National Security Council, we had over the period been engaged in a series of activities, all geared towards capacitating our officers, preparing them for the provision of the much needed security for the elections. The NSCCG is the subcommittee of the National Security Council, the second highest body for the consideration of all matters relating to security. It activated the IESPC a year and 6 months ago and mandated it to carry out certain functions, generally to provide for administration and coordination for election security. This body, the IESPC, went around the 16 electoral districts of Sierra Leone to conduct district risk mapping, elections, environment security assessment, needs assessment, and to scan the environment as to what obtains in terms of the threat, in terms of the potential spoilers, in terms of the stakeholders, the opportunities available that could be leveraged upon for the peaceful conduct of the elections. These engagements led to the development of 3 key strategic election security documents, i.e. an election security strategy, which is a roadmap for the provision of security for elections, a training manual, which is going to ensure that our officers who are going to be the foot soldiers, providing real-time security on the ground for ECSL and all other stakeholders, are capacitated enough in terms of knowledge, in terms of skills, what to do, what it is that they should not do, doing, and even after elections. And we also developed a communication strategy that is to ensure that in all that we do, we keep the public fully informed about our activities so that we diffuse the minds of the people against security sector personnel, so that they have confidence, trust in the personnel that will be seen in police stations, police centers, and cooperate with them in the process. After we had developed these documents, we thought that it was but important that we roll them out because the documents themselves were developed in papers. translating that into actual activity was very much key. So we had series of training of trainers engagements in the regions again to give real-time information on election security to personnel. We taught them issues relating to, in fact, the structures, the security structures. Mind you, we are talking about 25 or more thousand personnel. And some of the personnel could have been in the forces, the various forces, for a long time. Others might be coming in anew. And so we needed to put them all on the same plane so that they understand the rubrics of elections even before we go into elections. So we taught them several things: the national security architecture, what is expected of them, what they should expect from the public, conflicts and mediation, dialogue, because we are approaching this election using a three-pronged approach. One, it is going to be integrated, it is going to be cooperative and collaborative. On the mantra that elections themselves are civil affairs. And so if we want to provide adequate security, it has to be done in that regard, so that our presence should reassure the public. It should give them the confidence to do their voting activities without any fear.
What's your level of
whatsoever.
engagement with the political parties, and what the security structure that you'll be providing for them? Because there are several reports of recent. Just yesterday, we were speaking to the head of one API in Sierra Leone, Dr. Mahoy, and in their reports, they spoke about trust between the security sector and political parties, especially their leaders and some of their supporters. What's your level of engagement with them?
The aspect of trust cannot be overemphasized. Any iota of suspicion or lack of trust between political parties, political actors, and us, the security sector, will go a long way in, creating, punching holes into all of the activities. That is why we have made conscious efforts to have extensive engagement with all political parties. I mean, apart from us belonging to various platforms, we have also had the courage to invite political parties so that we all have dialogues. We all discuss on issues that will relate to our implementation of the law. Within the political parties liaison committee, we are having extensive engagement with all political parties. So I assure you that all of the documents that we've pieced together, whether it is election security related, whether it is security relating to political parties, political party leaders, how we want to implement the things that we have on document, policies, we have done so in collaboration with political parties, majority of the political parties. And so the emphasis has been over the period that we all make conscious efforts in our own way, whether as a political party, whether as security sector players, whether as EMBs, to understand what we are doing, how we are doing it, and to all of us to cooperate to the process. Because the reason for the establishment of policies, document, guidelines is to guide the process. If we all dance to the tune of those documents that have been developed, then we are certain that we are going to be fine.
And are you saying the political parties already understand and they are aware of the guidelines on how they should conduct themselves with this campaign period?
That is the assumption. And so far, we have no reason to doubt that they do not understand or even resonate with those kinds of developments. That's the reason that because we had done threat assessments across the country, developed threat registers, we noted that the aspect of street rallies during campaigns were a major factor to derailing peace and progress. Almost in all of our elections, it is during campaign times that people go into confrontation. People exhibit aspects of lawlessness and indiscipline. And so collectively, we also had agreed that let us try this model. We made a sample of it at the Sambaya Bendugu elections. You can recall that during that election, before the elections, there were campaigns. During the periods for the street campaigns, street rallies, there were a lot of skirmishes. People were injured, seriously injured. Valuable properties lost in the process. Almost to the extent that it tainted the image of the elections. So we thought thereafter, we resolved that going forward into the election, thankfully, the elections had not been held and the campaign periods were still on. And so we now stated that we are going to stop the campaign period here and see how we could manage the door-to-door campaign or selecting a venue for campaign could work. Thankfully, people complied. The two political parties that contested the elections complied, and that was very, very much a marvel. No further skirmishes happened, and so that is what we are going to translate into these current elections. We only hope that people are going to take that in good faith, because it is in the interest of political parties. Most often when these things happen, when these violence occurs, it is the political parties that will suffer, because it is their supporters, it is their sympathizers that are going to be affected anyway. And so putting a kind of a moratorium on street rallies is not only beneficial to the general public, because most often those people who perpetrate violence are in their minority. It is the majority of the country's population that will be affected, business people, all walks of life. But it is even beneficial most to political parties. Because say, for example, if there is violence, if there are destruction, and police is going to effect arrest, which is their responsibility anyway, it is going to be members of political parties. So to avoid all of that, that is why we all have agreed over the period, after we've developed a whole lot of these documents, to say, let us see how we could put a stop onto street political party rallies. So yesterday or today, the campaigns will begin proper. We are going to see what obtains. So far from our engagements across the country, we are satisfied that it's going to be peaceful. And that is what we expect that should happen as we go into the elections.
You know, quickly before Saliu comes in, let's talk about hate speech. You have been addressing such issues for a long time now, and there have been press releases to the effect. What are some of the mechanisms you wish to put forward to tackle some of these? Hate speech has been, a burden upon us of recent.
Continuous engagement. Indeed, hate speech is one of the biggest elephants, the biggest destructive elements for our body politics currently. And we think as a people and as a country, we have to stand against this hate speech, because it is only but tearing us apart. It is only eroding our moral values. A country like Sierra Leone, that I have known for the longest time, is one that values morality, that lays premium on morality. We've seen that, with the advent of social media, the new media, there is cautious effort by some people. I tell you, I assure you, they are all in the minority, to distort information, to send incendiary messages, to engage in hate speech. And that is in itself a strange behavior. One of the processes that we've been using is to have constructive engagement with the public. We recognize the fact that there are some people in country that are also perpetrators of hate speech. But majority of the hate speeches are coming from people who reside abroad. Sadly, some people who call themselves Sierra Leoneans, who are actually Sierra Leoneans, are the ones that are fomenting this menace. But beyond that, we have also developed a process, a system of countering, doing rejoinders to correct these kinds of behavior. Because hate speech is a broad concept. It could be sending invectives, attacking tribes, attacking regions, attacking personalities, such that you blur the political space. You make it difficult for some people to function. I tell you, most people, because of this toxic environment, who have a lot to offer to Sierra Leone, who have a lot to offer to their communities, will be taken aback by these kinds of behavior. because they want to do so decently. They have genuine intentions. They will not want to be in these spaces and be subjected to abuses of their parents, of their personality, and all of these kinds of things. So that is the reason that we should be united against it, because what HP will succeed in doing is to drive away decent people from politics. Politics, contrary to the belief that it's a dirty game, it's actually a game that is very decent. That if the real intentions are to develop communities, are to develop the people, the country, then these vices that are shrouded, that are surrounding politics should not actually exist. Because it is through politics that people will be given a platform, the opportunity to maximize the welfare of their citizenry. And if that is the case, it means that in the process of having people elected into positions of trust, we have to do so respectfully. If we subject our leaders, if we subject our women, if we subject responsible people into society into these kinds of bad behavior, we are only creating a situation where our communities will continue to derail, because we'll have bad people in positions, very responsible position. And that is why we also even are calling on political parties not to compensate people who perpetrate hate speech. Because by compensating them, it will give leeway to other people to think that, oh, it is that part that this person has used to, reach that pinnacle. I also have to use that route. So that is the reason. In fact, it should be a situation that if anybody is identified to be a hate speech maker or a promoter of hate speech, he should be frowned upon. Most often, it should be through naming and shaming or distancing themselves from them.
Again, as you made mention, because of there's this lack of mistrust or distrust in, the security apparatus bodies, there's this need to, they do not believe in what they do. And many a time they get to say that the Sierra Leone police overreacted in some situations, or, their response mechanism went too far. In that area, to have a playing ground where the citizens feel satisfied in believing that they can handle situations if there's any mistrust. What have you been doing together with the Sierra Leone police?
So part of the engagements in the training of trainers program, if you look at the training manual I referenced earlier, it contains a whole lot of prospects, a whole lot of concepts geared towards giving the skills, the thorough training, that in such a way that if it is implemented, then that aspect of mistrust will be minimized. The reality is, wielding the baton is a difficult thing. Enforcing the law is one that is very challenging, because when you enforce the law, you're going to hurt some people who perhaps are perpetrators of certain offenses. And those people would normally not take kindly to that. And so these are the people that normally would say police is high-handed. Sometimes it's even difficult to determine what is high-handedness and what is under-policing. Because again, there could be situations. If police respond to a situation and use a softer method and things degenerate, the same public will say again, you were not robust enough. Again, when you become robust and things go a little bad, it's again you are overreacting. So sometimes it is difficult. And when normally they say unarmed crowd, unarmed civilians, most often to the lay person, an armed person is somebody that has a rifle, that has an automatic gun. But that's beyond, being armed goes beyond that. Anything that you have that could harm another person could be considered an arm, as long as you have the intention to use it to cause behavior. It could be a pen, it could be a stick, it could be a machete, it could be a gun. And so, in situations, or it could even be a stone, in situations where law enforcement are executing the law and people pose threat onto that process, it becomes challenging to actually have a balance. However, mindful of the fact that we are providing security for and on behalf of people, especially the people of Sierra Leone, who always have laid emphasis over professionalism and ethics. Now, in whatever you do, whatever function you are carrying out, you have to do it professionally. All of the security sector leadership is within the various sector institutions are laying emphasis on this. That's the reason that even though we are enforcers of the law, it does not in any way make us above the law. So you can be accountable for your actions if you do excessive things. That is why there are mechanisms within the Sierra Leone Police, the Republic of Sierra Leone Armed Forces, Office of National Security. If you do things that are overboard, we could actually also checkmate you in terms of your conduct.
You know, again, for the sake of human rights purposes as well, Sierra Leone Police, you know, at some point went through the worst times during the August 10 to 12, you know, insurrection. But however, their lives matter as well in all of this. So in considering themselves and steps you have taken to, you know, when things go bad, hopefully it does not, but in case it does, them protecting themselves, what are some of the mechanisms as well in those circumstances?
So for the purpose of these elections, we are going to, I just mentioned that our approach will be integrated. And by that we mean we are going to make use of other security appendages. We know by law, the Sierra Leone Police has primacy over internal security. And for events of this nature, it should be the Sierra Leone Police. But by virtue of the volume and nature of the activity that we have at hand, we'll be making a lot of good if we also leverage on the existing security sector institutions. So we are having the Republic of Sierra Leone Armed Forces supporting the Sierra Leone Police under the rubrics of the military aid to civil power. We are also going to make use of the National Fire Force. In elections period, issues of arson are common. We do not envisage that, and we do not encourage people to go that route. But in the event that it happens, we have the Sierra Leone Fire Force. We also have the correctional services. This is because in elections, some people, in spite of all of the mechanisms, will just want to do things that are above normal behavior. And so if arrests are made, there are legal investigations and what have you, and culprits are going to be, you know, incarcerated, it is the Sierra Leone Correctional Services. And because we want to make our presence felt in every nook and cranny of the electoral area, we are also going to make use of the chiefdom police officers. So we are going to support the police. Okay. We are going to provide a much needed support, collaboration with them, so that you will not have just a single police officer in a police station. Okay. Somebody could not take advantage of them because you mentioned that in August 10, we had a human face onto approaching the public that A, B, and C is wrong, don't do, and that kind of thing. Those of our officers who found themselves in the wrong place at the wrong time became victims.
Let's bring in the election observers, the people who will be observing the campaigns and the election itself. Sally from the National Elections Watch. Campaign starts today. So far, perhaps you want to give us an understanding of the atmosphere. What has been your observation as new so far with this commencement of campaigns today?
Thank you very much. I think so far so good. The campaign or the process itself, because campaign starts today, but the processes have been going on long before today. So far, I mean, it's not that the process is devoid of incidents. There are incidents, but they are very isolated incidents. They are not as widespread as many people are fearing. So looking at what is happening across the country, we only hope will continue like this. There are few incidents actually across the country, very few of them.
But generally, that's been peaceful.
But generally, the atmosphere has been peaceful, and we hope it continues this way. Especially now that we have the campaign calendar, which I think is very, very important. Because the campaign period is that time when it is very involving, it is very demanding, and it is also the period when we normally expect to see or hear lots of incidents of violence. So it involves everybody. All the stakeholders need to actually put their hands on deck to make sure that, that atmosphere is averted.
We are in a different situation with campaigns this season. For the very first time, we're not expecting political parties to rally across in major streets. According to the PPRC, they're expected to converge in a certain area and address their supporters. So what difference will this make to the whole electioneering process?
Well, it is good, like my colleague from the ONS said. I mean, we are piloting it. We want to see, even though, according to him, it was piloted as Sambaya Bendugu elections, and the result was very, very, admirable. So we also piloting it in general elections. So we really want to see. But there are concerns. When the street rallies were banned, we are concerned as National Elections Watch. Our concern is these people are going to be converged in designated areas to address their supporters from time to time. But we know what normally happens. Even if they are to converge in a designated area, they have to move to go to that place. And they are not coming from the air just to calm down that place. And sometimes, whether by design or by coincidence, they have to move in groups. And at times, they may want to identify themselves, say, oh, we are coming from Bikwaf, or we are coming from Mount Urel. They want to have their banners. So this is the concern. What really constitutes a street rally? I think this aspect has to be not only properly explained, but it has to be managed, especially now that we have this thing. And that's why we are very happy when the ECSL published the campaign calendar. Because, as I said, so many actors, especially those who have a hand in the management and conduct of elections, they all have a part to play. For instance, they have the political parties themselves. Now that they have the calendar, they have to prepare. Because there are rules and regulations also governing what they are doing. And they prepare themselves against those rules to make sure that, their supporters and the leadership of the various political parties actually respect these rules and regulations. And even the AMBs, like the PPRC, that has the responsibility to regulate the conduct of political parties, they themselves also have to plan. They have to design their strategies and make sure that, they implement those strategies based on the calendar. And we also have the traditional ruler, because sometimes when we're talking about elections, we just forget about the traditional rulers, our paramount chiefs in these remote places. Sometimes they are the cause of the problems that take place in their communities. Because when you are a paramount chief, and it is very, very common, we've seen it, or some paramount chiefs, they will make the environment very conducive for some political parties. But when other political parties want to come in and engage, voters in their communities, they restrict the space and make it very, very difficult for them. But with a calendar, I think that also will help the engagement of those people. And for us, even the civil society, we have to monitor, we have to observe. We cannot do it because we don't have the responsibility actually to conduct. We have the mandate just to observe, to follow the processes, and make sure that we engage those who are responsible, the institutions that are responsible, to make sure that at the end of the day, we have a peaceful, free, fair, transparent, and an election which outcome is actually accepted by all. So we also have to plan ourselves. And even with you people, the media, you have a big role to play. You have a very big role to play, because most times people go into the polls to vote without even having, information, in-depth information about the candidates, about the policies they want to pursue in case they are elected. I think that's the responsibility of the media. And we know the media infrastructure in this country is very, very limited. You guys are challenged. But with this calendar, that will help you to see how best you're going to use the limited resources that you have so that you cover the campaign events across the country. And for us at the National Elections Watch, just like my colleague from the ONS was saying, let there be a level playing field. Because one of the root causes of violence in elections is the fact that the level playing field is not made level by those who have the responsibility either to conduct or to police the elections.
And one of your partners recently, what they must say, West Africa Democracy Election Observers Network, in their preliminary reports they visited recently, and in one of their reports they mentioned the issue of trust, you know, and providing a level playing field, like you mentioned, how the opposition party and the ruling party, the electoral commission, the security sector, there is this issue about trust amongst them and especially the opposition party. How do we build on that, you know, as we move to this election?
I think dialogue, continuous dialogue, but the trust is not coming from a vacuum. I mean, the trust is built over time. And this is something for us at the National Elections Watch. We've been calling attention to incidents that happened during by-elections. And if those incidents happen and no action is taken, then at the end of the day, nobody will trust the state institutions. For instance, we had several by-elections after 2018. The first election was, I think, Tonkolimba. I mean, somebody, a 14-year-old boy, was killed. And the police promised to investigate. Up to this point, they are investigating. We are still waiting for the results. And also during another by-election in Kailang, another boy was also killed. And again, the police promised to investigate. And up to this point, they are investigating. And we've also seen in constituency 110, when people, bulldoze themselves into a police station and destroy ballot boxes in the presence of police officers in broad daylight. Again, the police promised to investigate, and they are still investigating. We are still waiting for the result. Then we've seen instance in Freetown wherein a figure 49 was changed from 49 to 149. And again, they promised to investigate, and they are still investigating. So if we have all of these incidences, then certainly there is going to be a question mark on trust.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, elections is about the people. It's a people-centered activity. Once the people, do not participate, then it also has a question mark. Because the thing is, let's ask the question, if the people are not participating, let's ask the question, why are they not participating? That is the concern all of us should have, including those that are tasked with the responsibility to conduct the election. So let's ask the people, is it the lethargy is coming? They have their reasons for not participating. Because when you meet with the people, sometimes they will tell you, why should I go and vote? My vote doesn't count. Whether I vote or not, it doesn't count. It doesn't make any difference. That's one reason some people say, I'm not going to bother myself. And some are saying, why should I vote? I always vote, I get promises, but these promises are not fulfilled. So this time around, I will not waste my time going to a place to vote. So we have to, engage the people. We have to know, why are they not going out to vote? Like we saw during the distribution of the voter ID cards. A lot of the voter ID cards were not collected. And when you ask the people the same reasons, they will tell you, why should I bother myself? Why should I trek? Why should I walk 6, 7, 8, 10 miles to go and collect a voter ID card to vote an exercise that will not even change my status, an exercise that will not even change the way I live? So these are all the issues. Perhaps people are not going to the polls to vote as a way of manifesting something that they have in them. And unless you engage them, they will continue to see it that way. And once that happens, it's a serious problem. Because when we talk of election, it's all about the people. This is the time the people have to actually meet with those that want to lead them or those that have been leading them and ask questions and dialogue with them so know exactly when they come to power, this is what they're going to do. So at the end of the day, they will hold them by their word. They say, okay, 5 years ago, you promised this. How far have you gone to redeem your promise? But if the people are just lethargic, they are just tired, they are just, frustrated about what is happening, then they will just sit at home, which is bad for our democracy.
Again, NEW has been in this business of, elections observation for a while, and continuously get to give recommendations on what should be done as follow-ups. However, is it actually being put into play, some of these recommendations by successive governments?
It's difficult. That's why after the 2018 elections, the recommendations that, came from election observation missions, we had over 100 100 recommendations from different observer groups. The Qatar Foundation, the Commonwealth, the AU. What this was telling us is that it means all these years, because it's the same recommendations we're having. The same recommendations that we have after the 2007 election is the same recommendations we had after the 2012 election, 2018. So this goes to show that these recommendations are coming, but people are not taking them very seriously. But I think after 2018, there was a difference. After 2018, the ECSL made frantic efforts together with other partners to make sure that, they look at the recommendations made, especially those that had to do with policy reforms. And a lot of policy reforms actually took place from 2018 to now, that we all can see. So we only hope this will continue. As for the by-elections, like you rightly said, we always come up with recommendations. But these recommendations are not taken into account, some of them. Although some, they actually acted on them. Because like the by-election in Tonkolimba, the first round, by-election, the first round, somebody was killed and the election was postponed. And after a long time, the ECSL announced a date for the elections. But we at the national elections were thought, how can we just go into election after all this while? Let us go in there and gauge the mood of the people. What, the people thought about all of what had happened. So when they are on a pre-election assessment, that was the first pre-election assessment that we did. We met with different stakeholders. We even went on radio using Colenten radio or whatever to talk to the people. Then at the end of the day, the people were very much clear. They told us exactly how they felt about the 14-year-old boy that they killed. And from that time, nobody went there to even talk to them, just for the ECSL to announce a date. They said, okay, we are waiting for them. Let them come. They will then come. Now they kill for us. It is our turn now to kill their own people. So that was the situation. So we came back to Freetown, engaged the different stakeholders, the ONS, the PPRC, and all of them went there again, engaged with the people, dialogue with the people. So when we went for the second round or the runoff, nobody was killed. And the environment was peaceful throughout the day. So they conducted elections, and since then, we have been doing that. So in that respect, I think they listen to the recommendations that please don't go and conduct election. Go first and engage the people and know exactly what they need and what should make sure that we conduct this election peacefully. Okay. But for some, they don't.
Okay, we'll come back to you guys in the studio with us. We'll be joining as well the chairman of the PPRC, Lawyer Abdullahi Bangura, to talk more on the guidelines for the campaign period. I'll go directly to you, Will. Dr. Mawai was just talking about MACP, and we understand that, the elections will be secured with MACP, and she's saying that's worrying. It will cause voter apathy, the fear of seeing military men moving around with guns and all of that.
So it's a little disturbing that that's a distorted information. Indeed, there is a military aid to civil power. And this is not the first election that we are conducting using that model. There is clear information. When I was making points here, I stated that we recognize the fact that elections are civil affairs issues, and therefore we are going to keep it at that. The military supporting the police is not in any way saying that the military will be present in police stations or police centers. The military itself is an asset of Sierra Leone, and doing elections aside from the military supporting the police, they also provide enormous support to the ECSL, moving their items from point A to point B, conducting joint border patrols, doing static deployments, doing patrols where they should be doing patrols devoid of electoral activities. That is what we are saying. And I have stated that these are assets of Sierra Leone. If we are having a very big event of this nature, that the reality is that it will almost overwhelm the Sierra Leone police. Then it will make no sense if they sit idly by and fold their arms and things are going wrong. When we go into elections, there is every need for our borders to be firmly protected. In fact, most often, we close the borders from our neighboring countries. What obtains at the borders during these periods? If there are issues of misbehavior along the borders, we know that it's the responsibility of the military to look outward. But if they do now arrest, who do they hand over to? That is why the patrols are joined. The deployment that we are talking about, the involvement of the military, will actually be to have static deployment, to have presence along the border communities, and where the need arises, to be on standby if situations degenerate that will warrant support of the military to the police, then they will come in. But they will not be in police stations, they will not be in polling centers. We just want to allay the fears of the public along that line. And that it is not in any way meant to enhance voter apathy.
Will not have military men with guns at polling centers, polling stations?
No, except for those that will be accompanying presidential aspirants that are in convoys. If, for example, presidential aspirants that have armed officers deployed as part of their security details, they will come very close to the polling center and allow the voting to take place. But it's not like we'll be deploying military officers in polling stations, in polling centers with guns. That is completely misleading, and we want to really clear that one off. Okay. It's not true. We stated that this is a civil affair, and we want to keep it at that. The police officers that will be in police stations or polling centers will not be armed. But let's take, for example, a scenario where some rogue elements want to take advantage of that kind of a situation now, cause rowdiness all over the place, much to the extent that election observers are affected badly, polling materials, elections officials, and even voters themselves. And there are just one or two police officers present in that polling station, and you require some support. You may want to make use of the available asset that you have very close by. But in all of this, whatever intervention that any of the security sector institutions will be making will be done professionally. To ensure that the enabling environment, because at the end of the day, that is what we are craving for, creating the level playing field, the enabling environment where people should be able to carry out their function. If, for example, there is now an instruction that if people have voted, they should go home, listen to radio or watch television, and wait for the outcome of the elections result. But they now insist that we are going to conglomerate in their hundreds, if not thousands, in a particular location. You will not allow that to happen, because that will only mean you are creating a room for insecurity. So these are the things that we are talking about, but we are not going to have any men present in police stations or police centers. Rather, they'll be deployed on a static basis, or they'll be doing joint patrols with the Sierra Leone police officers. That's the situation.
Okay. I think we have the PPRC Chairman online now, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Hello, Mr. Chairman. Good morning.
Good morning, my brother.
Good morning and welcome to AYV. Campaign Master, we understand you're out of town engaging traditional leaders in the provinces. But campaign is starting today. What are the guidelines? What is expected of the political parties?
Well, the guidelines were distributed to all of the political parties, and we drew those guidelines from the conclusions we reached in the meeting we held on the 27th with all political parties on campaign mode. So we have distributed them. But basically, as a commission, we will be focusing on three key things. One, obstructing the campaign activities of your political opponent. Number two, the destruction of the political opponent's campaign materials. And number three, the trading of invectives against a political opponent. The rest of the other conducts that they used to perpetrate on the streets falls under the normal criminal code. I mean, stealing, wounding, and that kind of thing. That's for the police to handle. But because we wanted to avoid all of this, that was why we called that meeting, and all of us agreed that we should edit the crowd that will be heading for the places they will be campaigning. Because political parties have always campaigned in designated areas, and we have not stopped them from doing that. All we have asked them to do is to see how much they can do to control, or rather contain, their supporters who will be commuting to those designated areas they will be campaigning and commuting from those areas. So on the basis of the agreement we had with them on the 27th, we drew up those guidelines. The guidelines are, we do not want to see very huge number of persons, encumbering our streets to the exclusion of all other users of the roads, and in the manner they were conducting themselves. We also will not want to, as I've said, the trading of invectives along the routes, and the destruction of the opponent's campaign materials, and then the obstruction of the opponent's campaign activity. For instance, if it is not your party that is campaigning, then you go and assemble your supporters along the route of the party that is campaigning, and then you create the likelihood of a confrontation. That is also something that is now prescribed under the new Political Parties Act number 25 of 2022.
Mr. Chairman, there has been this talk about a ban on street rallies by political party. Is that part of the guidelines? Is that still what you'll be enforcing with the political parties?
Well, they call it the street rallies, but we at the Commission, we are of the view that there has never been street rallies in this country. I mean, parties have always rallied in designated areas. I think what was the issue is the huge number that used to process to those designated areas. In fact, in some instances, even when the leadership is supposed to address their supporters in the area they've chosen to campaign, most times the leadership could not get there until after the crowd maybe are dispersed because of the huge number. So what we were editing is the assemblage of that large number of supporters in the streets, and thereby creating some fear in the minds of the ordinary Sierra Leoneans. For instance, school children will not go to school, the market woman will not go to sell, because they are fearful that in the event there is a clash between the political parties, they may be caught in the fray. So we were trying to see how much we can do together with the political parties. How do we edit these crowds? I mean, let us go to the places we used to go and talk to our supporters. But in the process of going to those places and coming from those places, the discomfort used to occasion the public is what we wanted to put an end to.
Okay, Commissioner, so far so good. The political parties regulating themselves together with the PPRC. What can you say about incendiary songs? Because that was discussed yesterday. Where does that fall?
Yeah, it falls within the same guidelines that we have issued, that you should not use those incendiary songs and those obscenities against the political opponent. And definitely, I will want to say kudos to the two main ones, the two big ones. I mean, they have had activities in Freetown, and I have not heard any obscenity whilst they were converged in the areas they converged. The APC, following the nomination of their presidential candidate, they converged at their party headquarters, and I didn't hear any rude song, I didn't hear any incendiary statements from any of their leaders. The SLPP converged at Bintumani and at Tuga Stadium, and throughout those two activities, I did not hear any incendiary statements or obscenities coming from the crowd. And also, after the assemblage, I went there the next day to drive around and see if the campaign materials of the opponents were intact. And indeed, I mean, for both of them, the campaign materials of the opponents were not touched, so they were there intact. So on that score, they've been very compliant, and I only hope that they will continue to be compliant.
Okay. You know, we are into an election in a time when we see political parties converging and forming alliances, you know, and there's this campaign calendar that speaks to each political party having their own day. Are they expected to adhere to that, or say a political party that has got an alliance with another political party can use that day to campaign together? Is that allowed?
Well, if it is an arrangement between the parties, I mean, we do not see anything that will go against our own act in that respect. If it is the agreement between the two parties, the problem we will have with political parties, when you do not have that kind of agreement with another party and it is their day to campaign, then you take to the streets to also campaign, then you will have us to contend with, because we will expect each and every one of them to respect, I mean, the other's date that is allotted to them. So yes, if it is an agreement, they go into an alliance and we are informed of that alliance and they want to campaign together, it's fine. The more the merrier. And as I speak to you, we are in Kenema today. I mean, we have been invited to the launch of the manifesto of the SLPP. And we also have another program that is been ongoing. We are in Kenema today to talk to the paramount chiefs as well, and the district executive of all the political parties to be tolerant and to allow every political party free access in their communities. So we are going to do that program. Then thereafter, we'll take to the streets of Kenema to observe how the SLPP will be conducting themselves, going to the place where His Excellency will be addressing them with his manifesto. So, I mean, we're doing our job, and we will only continue to appeal to political parties. I mean, the PPRC is not trying to restrict the political space. We are not by any means trying to gag any political party. All we are doing is we do not want to invoke the enforcement powers that are now conferred on us by the new Political Parties Act of 2022. We want the goodwill of the political parties. They've always cooperated with us in all of the activities that we have carried out. And so we want that goodwill that we have enjoyed from them. So this is why we are doing our own little to avoid us having to invoke the law against any of them.
Okay, Commissioner, if there's any breach to particularly the three main guidelines you have set for the political parties, what would be the outcome for the three main guidelines?
Well, definitely we'll have recourse to the provisions of the law. I mean, as I said, we will be looking for three principal things. We will be looking at the trading of invectives against your political opponent. We'll be looking at the destruction of your political opponent's campaign materials. And we'll be looking at the obstruction of your political opponent's campaign activities. If they get themselves involved in any of those three things, we'll come after them by invoking the appropriate provisions in the Political Parties Act. For the other things they were committing whilst they were on the streets of this country, I mean, that one falls within the normal criminal code and is a matter for the police to handle.
There are political parties who will be campaigning today or campaigning some other days. Are they allowed to trade their days to other political parties to campaign, or they should stick to the calendar itself?
I don't think trading, I mean, it's permissible. What I have said is if a political party will want to go into an alliance with another for purposes of campaigning, it's fine. That's their own business, because the whole thing about campaigning is to send your message to the electorate and trying to canvass their votes. So if you choose to do it together with another one, it's fine by us. But the idea of you, I mean, trading, as you have put it, your campaign day to another political party definitely is not acceptable. But you can go into an alliance to work with another political parties and to campaign jointly.
Mr. Chairman, we see you're busy out there. We're going to leave you, but quickly we want to ask what will you say to party supporters and their leaders as well? This issue about taking responsibility. We've seen where the PPRC, there's been exchanges of letters between the PPRC and political parties about taking responsibility of actions of their supporters. What will you say to that, sir?
Well, it's just about reminding them of the role of a leader. I mean, leadership embodies a lot of things. And when you are the leader of a political party, you should be prepared to own up to every conduct of your supporters that you will call out to any place to talk to them. So yes, we will continue to encourage the leaders of the political parties to be temperate in what they say in public. I mean, definitely their supporters will listen to them. And therefore, you have to put your country first and try to talk. The last time when we had these guidelines out, people were saying that, oh, we will want the police to do their job. I mean, PPRC, you have no business coming out with guidelines. Let the police do their job. And I knew that if the police do their job, at the end of the day, people will still have reasons to begin to complain to the police. And that was exactly what happened the first standoff they had after those guidelines. That was during Dr. Samura Kamara's nomination, when a huge crowd came out and they wanted to go to ECSL, and the police said, no, you had an agreement with ECSL that 20 people, the family, the immediate family of the candidate and the 3 nominators, we're not going to allow beyond that. They had a standoff and the police needed to discharge some tear gas. I mean, at the end of the day, again, they came and said, oh, the police were high-handed. And that's what I told them, that, I mean, these are all the things that the PPRC will want us to avert. I mean, when the police act, they are high-handed. When they do not act, they fail in their responsibility. So at the end of the day, let us don't give the police any reason to interfere or intervene in our activities. Let us conduct ourselves in a manner that will not give the police any cause to come in. So, I mean, we will ask the leaders and the supporters to put the country first and to be very guided in what they say, particularly the leadership of political parties. I mean, when you say it, your supporters will believe it. And at the end of the day, if you say something that is inflammatory, there is the likelihood that the supporters will act in accordance with your statement. So be temperate in what you say and be guided in what you say.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We wish you well. Hopefully, when you return to Freetown, we'll have you in the studios to discuss further on the work of the PPRC. But thanks for joining us from Kenema via Zoom this morning. That's the chairman of the Political Parties Regulation Commission, Lawyer Abdullahi Mashambi Bangura, speaking to us on the commencement of the campaign period. July.
Yes, you were, smiling when he made mention of the hardness of the Sierra Leone police when it comes to favoring what people actually want, and when it's not on their way or on their party, it goes sideways. So in that direction, again, still with the Sierra Leone police and your body, what will be the steps forward?
We'll continue to engage our officers to remain professional, to inculcate the habit of doing their work in the interest of Sierra Leone. What Lawyer Bangura stated there is just to buttress the points that I was making. That indeed it's a difficult thing to enforce the law. If you do not act, from what he said, you are not doing anything. You're folding your arms and wrong is being done. If you act again, you are overreacting. So what he's saying, we want to do our work. We have a responsibility to perform a duty. Our interventions are mostly being triggered by events. And we want to limit that occurrence of events. If events occur and want to intervene, they should be ones that will require a positive intervention to support the activities of political parties, not to go into action of arresting people or discharging tear gas and that kind of a thing. We have noticed, and sadly so, that there have been attempts even to usurp the functions of the police. When political parties, especially the 2 main political parties, the major political parties, are carrying out their functions and police is policing those functions, some marshals will come to say, no, you don't do X, Y, Z, you don't go beyond this point. That's bizarre. The political leadership must trust the Sierra Leone police because we have been established for that purpose. And we cannot allow anyone to usurp those functions. In fact, it should be concerning to the leadership of political parties that martialism itself is outlawed, because we know the implications of this kind of a practice. They will, aside from usurping the powers of the police, they are a breeding ground for thuggery, both at intra and inter-political party level. That's the reason, in collaboration with political parties, the security sector meant to ensure that we put a total ban onto the use of marshals within political parties. I mean, the less we talk about the atrocities these groupings have caused within political parties and across political parties, the better. So we want to appeal to political parties, taking the cue from Lawyer Bangura, to leadership to remain very much true to the cause of Sierra Leone. Statements from politicians that are divisive will limit the political space. Although for us, that should not be an excuse for stopping people to campaign anywhere they want to campaign. Because if I come to AYV to woo your support, listening to me will not make you support me. It will be your decision to support me based on the message that I will bring out. But those statements that I might have made prior to my coming to AYV will go a long way in even you allowing me entrance into AYV. So that's the reason that we are appealing to political party leaders not to go to that line. Also taking a cue from my brother in the studio, he mentioned the attitude of some traditional authorities who over the period have been accused for siding some political groupings against the other, making the environment or their communities conducive when it is one political party, and making it very, very much toxic when it is the other political party. That's a strange thing, especially for our revered paramount chiefs. What should be underscored is the fact that paramount chiefs are custodians of law and order, of everything. They are revered people. And that not all paramount chiefs, majority of the paramount chiefs are ones that are doing the right things, but just a few of the traditional. When we talk about traditional leaders, we refer to town chiefs, section chiefs, chiefdom speakers, all of those authorities. In the most recent E2 NSCCG engagement, the expanded National Security Council coordinating group meeting held across the regions in Sierra Leone, the National Security Coordinator led members of the NSCCG, the second body I mentioned, and brought together all of the decentralized security structures, the provincial, the district, and chiefdom security committees. These committees have in them all of the relevant stakeholders within the district, chiefdom, and the provincial level, the paramount chiefs inclusive. One of the themes of the discussion relates to the role of the paramount chiefs in ensuring that we create the enabling environment where all political parties will function. And thankfully, there was a commitment, there was assurance that paramount chiefs, traditional authorities, will be employed in ensuring that they provide the enabling environment. Sometimes it is difficult for them. I will not be the devil's advocate, or sometimes it's the same politicians that make it difficult for them. When they make the atmosphere conducive for everybody, one other grouping will say, in fact, you belong to that party. That was why you made it more conducive for him than you made it for me. And so sometimes, because they don't want to be caught into the fray, they will just abandon the chiefdom, or they will just abandon the section, as the case may be. If we are genuine in actually seeking their support to provide us, you should not accuse a paramount chief because he sits with a presidential candidate, or because he sits with the sitting president, or because he sits with a minister. We have stated that the paramount chiefs are like the suckling mothers. They should have everybody. Okay. They should have their doors open for everybody. I am from a ruling house. In my home, where I come from the ruling house where I come from, I could go to the chief's house and eat anytime I want to. whether it is at 12 midnight, whether it is in the morning, all of the time, they cook all of the time. And it's only limited to me as member of that family. Any other person, you could be catered for. That is the role that is expected from paramount chiefs.
Let's bring in Sally. You've heard from the PPRC chairman about the 3-point they'll be looking for. You know, as new, what will you be monitoring? What will you be looking at with this campaign period?
We are monitoring all of those. In fact, we've deployed long-term observers. We've deployed 34 long-term observers, 2 observers per district. And they also have 3 key things that they are monitoring. They are monitoring the general pre-election environment in all of these districts. What is really going on in terms of all of these things we're talking about, the behavior of the paramount chief, the attitude of the paramount chiefs, the political parties, and all of it. Then the second level we are monitoring also is the political party campaign events. You know, the campaign events even started. There were campaign events going on even before the calendar was actually produced. So we are monitoring all of that as well. Then also incidents. Any incident that has the potential to impact on the processes or impact on the outcome of the elections, we monitor all of those. So they are there. But I'm very happy about these 3 things. Obstruction of opponent. This has been a main cause for some of the violence we've seen all over the place. And also the issue of the destruction of banners. Then you have the use of, the trading of invectives. But there is some ray of hope, if you look at it. Because if we look at the issue of the destruction of banners, initially when political parties started mounting their banners in public places, we saw a whole lot of them being destroyed. Then PPRC came in, and other stakeholders came in, led by PPRC, and they had dialogue with these political parties. And since then, all the banners that they posted on public places, they are still intact. Meaning, there are people listening to some of these, issues coming from this dialogue, and there are people who are also respecting the decisions, they take behind closed doors. Then even the issue of using invectives. You know, before we go into the political atmosphere proper, we saw what really happened, especially when political parties were having their conventions, they are having their primaries. We had so many beautiful songs, beautiful in the lyrics. The lyrics are not beautiful. In sound, they are beautiful to hear. But when you listen to the words, they are not at all. And it's really sad enough for us in the 21st century to be singing these things, especially against people who want or we're looking forward to take the leadership of this country in the future. Mm-hmm. So it's good that, these things are working. So what the PPRC or what this is trying to tell us is the fact that if only we can dialogue, then we can achieve something. We cannot achieve something by force because a whole lot of force has been exerted over the years. But if you look at the approach the PPRC is using now, bringing these political parties, nobody will have thought that. The destruction of banners will just stop like that. And the use of invective will just stop like that. But once you get somebody, you sit with the person, you get the thoughts of the person, and you dialogue, you unanimously agree on something, they are really going to respect it because they know that they're going to take ownership. They are part of the decision making. But when you want to force certain things on people, then they will normally be counterproductive. You know,
apart from the 34 long-term observers, which you made mention, there are also the 5 zonal coordinators. What will be their exercise in all of this? Yeah, the 5 zonal coordinators,
we have 5 regions in the country. And each zonal coordinator is attached to a region. Their responsibility, they will be in the office. There is a situation room already in the office. And the district, the long-term observers, 2 per district, they will send reports every Monday at 11 o'clock. And this report is based on the general election environment, pre-election environment in the district. And this is compulsory. Every Monday at 11 o'clock, they send reports of what happened for the previous week. And for incidents, they send reports of incidents immediately after the incident had happened. And the zonal coordinators, they are in the office, they are receiving this report. And when they get this report, they also have the responsibility to follow up, to ask few questions, to make sure that the story is round, and to fact check whatever comes in. So that before we go out to the public, we'll make sure that whatever information we get is accurate. And we also, new is a coalition of civil society organizations. Apart from the long-term observers that we have, if we feel this issue is so serious enough, we also try to triangulate what they give us with other civil society actors and what other institutions. And this is the responsibility of the zonal coordinators who are there with us. And they also do the analysis, because we have people that are also experts in doing analysis on these issues.
Quickly before we go for news summary, Abdul Karim, how do you intend to use or utilize the social media handle to tackle hate speech? Because since, elections are upcoming, they want to use again social media to propagate wrong images and the likes. So how does the ONS intend to use social media handles to counteract some of this misinformation?
So we're making our presence very visible and active. Already we have constituted a social media rapid response team within the security sector, supported by the National Security Coordinator, where we'll look for such information that will be misleading the public. And where possible, we do rejoinders, or even those that are not been sent in via social media, but that are being rumored around, will actually put out the correct information for the attention of members of the public. Of course, social media misuse is the biggest problem, the biggest monster that we are contending with. In the first place, as a people, as a country, we have to appreciate that social media is here to stay. And that some people will just make conscious efforts to misuse social media. We should also make conscious efforts to benefit from the bounties that are from social media. So one thing that we should be doing is to cross-check information, fact-check information. Do not just act based on information that you receive on social media. Sometimes these bloggers or these people who send these kinds of messages are very clever. You tweak the messages in such a way that you think that is a gospel truth. Currently, there is a peddling of information that there are rebels in Sierra Leone, a mining community, much to the extent that that is creating a lot of scare on people, or somebody sending a message that he succeeded in importing hundreds of arms and ammunition into Sierra Leone. They are now being distributed among patriots. We've done rejoinders to assure the public that these are lies, these are untruth for the Sierra Leone situation. Indeed, there are foreign nationals, people from Liberia, Guinea, or even Senegal, and what have you. When the information trickled in that they were rebels, they were being brought to be trained to cause mayhem on Sierra Leone, we interrogated the company and the foreign nationals themselves. It came out clearly that in collaboration with the Ministry of with the Immigration Department, that these were legitimate people who had legitimate reasons to be in Sierra Leone. Drivers working in various departments within the mines community. There could be various reasons why people are peddling this information about them. One is to create fear. It's possible that it's to create fear among the population on that part of the country, or even the entire country itself. Or it could actually be people who feel threatened of their job by the presence of these people in those communities. So it is not true, I can say categorically and authoritatively, that there are no rebels in Rutai or no rebels anywhere in Sierra Leone. All mining communities across the country, whether it is in Lonsar, whether it is in Bumona, whether it is in Rutai, Moyamba, or what have you, will attract foreign nationals anyway, whether nationals from European countries, Western countries, or nationals from African countries. If we are not referring to the European foreign nationals as rebels. Why do you want to refer to Liberians as rebels? That is a bad thing to do, and it's completely wrong. So beyond also responding to social media, we have also reactivated the National Situation Room. My brother also mentioned the existence of a situation room at NEW. The National Situation Room will be the conduit for information received from our field operatives, processing and analysis, where the need be for operationalization.
Okay.
And in the engagement that the NS Squad had at the regional level, there was instruction for the reactivation also of the Incident Command Center and the forward control points, so that they work together with the National Joint Operations Center for operationalization of information or activities. The National Situation Room in Freetown is manned 24/7 by all the primary security sector institutions, and it is running on a 24/7 basis. There is a toll-free line that gives opportunity to members of the public to also send in security or intelligence into that room that will require security intervention. And it is on all of the networks, AfriCell, Orange, QCell, and it is 119. We actually encourage the public to responsibly make use of this opportunity to report security information, whether it is information relating to election security or general security situation. You will call on that line 119 and you will have an adequate response. I have stated that it is being manned on a 24-hour basis. When the European Union team visited the ONS yesterday, we took them on a conducted tour to see these facilities, and they were very much impressed because they had gone actually to pay a courtesy call on the National Security Coordinator and the ONS, and to also seek for information about the general security situation in the country, because they'll be deploying observers, both short and long-term observers in the country. And so they needed to have a fair knowledge of what obtains and to also tell us their purpose of being in Sierra Leone. Contrary to some of the rumors that have been peddled about observers, generally, especially European observers, is that they actually are interested in the processes leading to the elections and not who wins the polls. That's their interest is in following the due process, because it is part of strengthening democracy across the world. And given the partnership between Sierra Leone and the European Union and European countries, that is part of the support that they are providing.
Thank you very much, Will, Abdulkarim Will, and Sally Kamara for joining us this morning. We wanted to set the agenda to talk about the start of the campaign period and what is expected of the political parties and the supporters as well. But thanks very much. People have understood the security situation from you guys and also from the PPRC and the National Elections Watch. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.